I just loved the atmosphere of hotels. I loved this kind of teamwork that ultimately delivered something great for the customer. Oh, wow, I'm getting more. I was a pretty beaten human being at that point, and my leadership wasn't as I wasn't leading teams as effectively as. There is amazing people out there who want to help you, and whether it was my wife, whether it was my dad, whether it was people around me at work, when we start to share our problems, and as long as they're sincere and it's not another new problem every single day.
I'm Farah Shammas. Welcome to Hotel Talk. We hope you enjoy listening to this friendly conversation between people connected by real life in hotels. Welcome back, everyone, to another amazing episode of Hotel Talk. And today it really is about hotels, or at least we'll have a lot of hotels in it. I have Simon Maguire all the way from the UK. He is based in the south of England. I'm going to let him tell us all about him. He's the managing director of our New Forest Hotel Collections, which some of you might know is my father's baby. It comprises of 5 absolutely stunning hotels in the New Forest, Hampshire, UK. And he is the co-founder of Rockingham Partners, which is a quite interesting company. He's also a motivational speaker and a daddy of 2. So I can't wait to have Simon tell us all about his exciting journey so far in this amazing industry. Simon, welcome to Hotel Talk.
Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here. I'm excited. It's a bit rainy outside. It's a bit English today, which is upsetting. But yeah, you wouldn't expect anything less.
Exactly. We love a bit of English rain. That's why I think people come knowing what to expect. So
exactly.
Yeah, well, here in Cyprus, it's quite warm as usual. We're like 35 degrees, I think, today. But yeah,
sounds
good. Just to make you jealous. Yeah. So, Simon, why don't we start by telling us, myself and the listeners, a little bit about you. Tell us about your background. Where did you grow up? We'll get into your business side later, but who is Simon?
Yeah. So again, thanks for having me on. So who is Simon? Well, I was born in Scotland to a French mother and a English stroke Irish father. So quite a good combination.
Wow.
And being born in Scotland, I think if I was any good at sport, I could have qualified for 4 different teams, which would have been fun. So yeah, and
do you speak French?
I do, yeah. Fluent French speaker. So which is
amazing.
A really nice skill to have actually, and it's come in handy pretty recently. So lived in a town called Guildford. Moved from Scotland down to Guildford. My dad was in the hospitality trade. He had a long career kind of in contract catering. So I started to really, I was quite lucky. I was quite passionate about sport, and he was a contract caterer essentially in the sports world. So we got to go to all the big matches where his company would be doing the catering. And I got to go behind the scenes and watch the chefs. And, I just got really interested in service, just kind of observing all of those sorts of things. And so it kind of, my mum was also in hotels. She was a receptionist. That's interestingly how they met. They met at a hotel in Victoria Station. My dad, I think, was the night manager, and my mum was the receptionist.
The story of so many hoteliers, partly because we don't have a life outside of hotels, so people just end up finding their soulmate within the industry.
Yeah, and I found my wife likewise. So I think it's like that in the industry, that it's helpful if your partner's been in it, because then there's an understanding there of the hours and the effort that goes into making it successful. And Yeah. So and really, I was pretty hopeless at school. In all honesty, I'm not brilliant in kind of the written language and all of those sorts of things. And teachers kind of gave. I loved playing sport, but the teachers gave up hope on me pretty early on. But I got a part-time job when I was 14, first of all in housekeeping, cleaning rooms at a local hotel. And then I got a big promotion to kitchen porter in the hotel, and then setting up events. And I just loved the atmosphere of hotels. I loved this kind of teamwork that ultimately delivered something great for the customer. And I then started to be in roles where I was more customer facing, and I really enjoyed that kind of opportunity to make an impact with the guests. And it's so easy to actually turn someone's stay from ordinary to amazing. And I think that's what makes our industry so beautiful, is that even just small interactions that we have with guests, we can change their entire day through service, and that's what I've always loved about the industry. So,
and even more than that, we can change the whole outlook on life. We can, create a memory. That's how I view it. We sell happiness. I mean,
yeah,
they're a way, even if it's for business, they're having a different experience, and we can make that so special, and that's what's
yeah,
just so amazing and
yeah.
gratifying.
I just love it, and I was pretty addicted to it. And I then got an opportunity. There was a hotel group in London that I'd been reading about that looked really cool, called Ferndale Hotels, and they only had 3 properties at the time, and they had a kind of scheme for young individuals, and I applied, and it was a really difficult process, I remember, and I really wanted the job. And on the day, I knew 3 people would be selected, and there was 20 of us down to the final shortlist. And when I got the call the next day to say, "Look, you made it as one of the 3. You'll start in a month's time," and so on, I was just over the moon. And so kind of packed my bags and moved to London.
And that was for what position?
That it was called you were called basically a trainee
Amazing.
scheme.
Mm.
And the way the scheme was set up was you'd do 6 months in food and beverage, 6 months in front office, and then a 6-month supervisory position. And these hotels were just, I'd kind of come from a bit of a kind of local hotel that was great, but it wasn't all kind of razzmatazz. And these hotels, and still to this day, these hotels for me are the
And
are the
how old were
pinnacle.
you when you did that training?
21.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So 21, and it was just this huge eye opener for me. It was all celebrities, so I got the chance to look after Ben Stiller and Helena Christensen, and just celebrity after celebrity. They were proper five
Yeah.
star
A-listers.
hotels, proper A-listers, and it was just the Foo Fighters. That was
Amazing.
great.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was epic, and that company really looked after me. I worked with them for 8 years, and they kind of took me through lots of different positions, and they grew quite quickly. They had 6. They now have 7 hotels in London and 3 in New York, but back then they were certainly growing. And I got to do quite a few hotel openings, which was a buzz in itself. And yeah, just kind of my attitude, I suppose, turning up every day was just excitement, and I wanted to be there because it was a brand that was moving forward. And yeah, so that was kind of my start into the industry, really, which I loved.
That's so amazing. I love that. It was a calling, and I think it does come up time and time again. how people go into hotels. Okay, some people it wasn't in their family, but for many, they had an uncle or an aunt or a father or someone that really influenced them into going into the service industry.
Yeah, yeah, that had a
So
big impact.
I've got here a question for you. So what is it that you love most about the industry?
I think for me, and this, and it's harder as you I guess go up the levels. So just talking about that kind of guest interaction, like ultimately that's my favorite bit. But as things have evolved, it's become more about seeing people grow. It's what's great about the hospitality career, and you can take my example, I guess, but I see it every day with people that I deal with, is you don't have to be the most talented mathematician. You don't have to be the most talented writer. You don't have to be, the brains of Britain. But if you have a good way with people, if you know how to inspire people, if you know how to motivate people, you can have the most amazing career. And there's less, if you go in to be, some of those more formal career paths, whether it's doctor or, all of these things, the path is a bit more formal and kind of set for you. You're going to do X amount of years of this and then X amount of years in this position and so on and so on. And what I love about hospitality is because it's so diverse and there's so many opportunities, your career path is like you see those images with those beautiful trees, like kind of all over the place. Like you just don't know where it's going to take you actually. And people can, if people are self-starters, if they're motivated, they can literally make their own journey up. And it's up to them to decide what they do. And I think that's what I love now about the industry the most. And it has a bad rep in the UK. And it's getting better.
Why does it? I love this subject, by the way, and it's part of the reason I've done Hotel Talk to kind of change that outlook on this industry. Why do you think the industry has a bad rep?
It's, I guess it's, I think there's, you see, I didn't have it with my parents. There wasn't a stigma attached to it, but, perhaps for a lot of parents, it's not the career path they want their children to take. It's not that it's maybe they don't feel it's the most glamorous or certainly in the kind of early stages of your career, it's maybe not the best paid. It's the hours. So I think there's a lot of negativity surrounding that. I think perhaps 20, 30 years ago as well, the way employees were treated, I think that's improved massively in the UK, and there's been some amazing initiatives around that. So I think it's getting better, but I think it's had a bad rep perhaps because of historical, but also there's kind of a bit of stigma attached to it in sense that it's perhaps from parents and things like that. They don't give children the best outlook on it. Yeah.
And I also think younger people now, especially with, the glamour and this ultimate life sold to them by YouTube and other social media platforms, they don't want to serve. Like they want to be served. They want to be the entrepreneur and drive a Bentley or Lamborghini or whatever it is and have the watches and the bags and the lifestyle. And so they don't want to necessarily be of service. But then on the other hand, we're seeing depression rise in younger people because it's not about having a life purpose, but being of service, like doing something worthwhile. And I think it's a real catch-22. And it's part of the reason I did this podcast, to showcase all these amazing people that we meet because of this industry. So Hotel Talk isn't about hotels as such, but we all meet because this is this is the new meeting place.
Yeah.
People don't go to churches like they used to. They don't go to the town halls, but they go to hotels, and then they get to
Yeah. And
meet you or the
I've
Foo
had the
Fighters.
opportunity. Yeah. And I've had the opportunity to meet, and some people, I'm still really well connected with, whether it's, interestingly, when I worked at the Knightsbridge Hotel, one of the very first Firmdale properties I kind of worked in, I met these amazing guests who went on, it was in its infancy, but her name was Chrissy Rucker, and she went on to create the White Company, the most, an
Okay, yeah,
amazing brand. And
yeah.
I'm still in touch with that business today. And, it was at that time, I think all she was selling was sheets through a catalogue and things like that. So you just get to meet so many amazing people, and a lot of them you stay in contact with. And
Yeah. And it's not necessarily, we're saying now, the famous people, but it might be the porter that really changed your life because they said something, or,
yeah,
the housekeeper that was just, such a support at some time in your life or whatever. I mean, the people are amazing.
yeah, absolutely. And that's what makes it. And I think, just going back to your point, I really struggled with kind of standard work, if that makes sense. So the reason I struggled in school was I couldn't really concentrate for an hour in a lesson, or go and write a paper for 2.5 hours. But what I could do is talk to people, and I could work at speed, and I had resilience and a bit of grit. And so actually in hospitality, the great skills you learn, or that get accentuated, is thinking on your feet, working at pace a lot of the time, and being able to talk to people, even in really, really tricky situations. I mean, I've been in some really tight corners with some guests, and it feels like your negotiation skills. You feel like you're, what's that film with Tom Hanks? Like, you feel like you're in that kind of negotiation thing, like under pressure. But actually, it's really good fun when you manage to wiggle your way out of a really difficult
Yeah.
situation. Yeah.
My goodness, definitely makes good content for dinner parties. Like, I
Yeah,
think hoteliers have the best stories.
definitely. And
So,
it's funny when you get onto that with people, they say, "Oh, what do you do?" And I say, "Oh, I work in the hotel." And invariably, you find that the conversation then stays with you for the next couple of
yeah,
hours.
definitely. I always say that. I laugh. I mean, yeah, if someone
Yeah,
has a choice between talking to us or an accountant, I'm pretty sure
yeah,
I know who they want to sit next
exactly.
to. Not that we don't love accountants. If any of you are accountants listening to this, we need everyone. But yeah. But that leads us on to, so on that note of speaking, public speaking. So you are a motivational speaker, you're a public speaker, you've done many talks in many different gigs, so to speak. Tell us a bit about that. How did you get into that? Why do you love doing that so much? And what's been your best gig to date?
Yeah. Okay. Really good question. So, and I'll be very, very open here, which is, so about 5 years ago, I would say I was group operations director of a fairly large group of hotels, 16 hotels across the UK, and I was really struggling, personally, really struggling. I had put on a lot of weight from kind of zooming around the country, not looking after myself, not looking after my diet. I was drinking too much. I in the industry, you probably have
I was
access.
discussing that this morning because you've got
Yeah,
clients every night, and it's so easy to have wine or drinks every night, and suddenly you're like,
yeah,
oh, yeah.
and you have access to it, and
Mm.
the bigger the roles get, I guess that access opens up even more. So I really wasn't in a great space. And it's funny you should say about conversation with a porter, because actually that's something that kind of happened to me, which was a guy called Gary, who I know really well and has really helped me out, who was a porter at one of the hotels. He's kind of said to me one day, he said, your health is really struggling. He said, you really need to start to look after yourself. And that kind of set a bit of a wheel in motion on my way home that night. And I thought, he's right. I've got an 8-year-old. At the time I had an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. And I was zooming around the country, and I was paying absolutely no attention to my own well-being. So I decided to, I make it sound easy, but I decided to get fit and get healthy. And
Well, it's not easy, but the biggest decision is to realize that you need to. So that's the first.
Yeah. So, and I managed to lose, well, to date, I've lost about 8.5 stone. So,
wow. How many kilos is that?
Okay. So kilos, I've gone from like 140 to 90. So about 50
50
kilos.
kilos.
Yeah.
That's like nearly me. That's insane. You've lost a person.
Yeah, I've lost a person. So,
wow.
and
Congratulations.
and kicked kind of alcohol completely. And just as that kind of journey was happening, I just found, oh wow, I'm getting more. I was a pretty beaten human being at that point, and my leadership wasn't as I wasn't leading teams as effectively as, because I wasn't looking after myself. My self leadership was poor, which meant my leadership was poor. And I just started to get a lot more confidence about myself. I felt better about myself. I went on and took on a challenge called the Ironman, which is pretty difficult, and that builds a huge amount of resilience and self-belief. And at first, my wife's like, you're bonkers, and a few people like, you're crazy. But then slowly but surely, people started asking me. I'd turn up to dinner parties and then I wouldn't drink, and people say, well, why are you not drinking? And I say, well, this is the benefits. And they were like really interested, and then they were like, okay, how do I get started? Or people would message me on LinkedIn and say, look, I'm really struggling with my weight. I don't want to kind of admit to it, but I see you've done the journey. Could you give me some advice? And I just kept on getting more and more kind of messages, requests. And I said to my wife, I said, I could nearly get a full-time job replying to all of these. And she said, oh, well, why don't you do some talking about it? Why don't you, speak about it? And I like speaking. And so I said, okay, yeah, maybe I'll give it a go. And I called up my very first general manager, a lady called Hele, who is Danish and runs the Covent Garden Hotel still to this day. And I said, look, I'd like to try and do a keynote talk. Could I come and do it to your team? And she has a beautiful cinema there, and I did it, and it was terrible. It was absolutely awful. I wanted the whole world to eat me up. But I put a camera at the back and I filmed myself, and I watched it over, and I took notes as if it wasn't me watching me. And I thought, I can improve that so much. And so then I had another go and another go. And then it actually started to become quite good. And then I put a bit of content around it. And then people started asking me, would you come and do it for us? Would you come and do it for us? And now it's just something I'm just so passionate about, because the feedback I get afterwards, some people will come up to me afterwards and say, I really needed that today, or you don't know how much that means to me. And that's great. And I love that. But also I get messages afterwards from people say, look, I couldn't come up to you. I couldn't ask this question in public. I'm just so embarrassed, but I have this problem or I have that problem. It's not always about weight. It might be addiction. It might be, trauma, pain, or whatever it is. And I think by showing my vulnerability and just being honest with people about how easy it is to get addicted to things, how easy it is to let yourself go, and all of that. But it's a really powerful message, and so yeah, and probably the one I've enjoyed the most, I would say, was a good friend of mine from hotels. Again, went to work for Amazon. And Amazon every year do a kind of graduation for all of their apprentices. Mm-hmm. And she asked me to be the keynote speaker at that. So it was at Amazon head office. It was filmed across 21 European cities.
Wow.
And there was 500 in the room, and they were all dressed in the kind of graduation hat and the robe. and the atmosphere was just amazing. It was really electric. So that definitely is my favorite to date. So yeah, and yeah, I love it. I love it.
That's amazing. I'm so happy you brought up this subject of burnout because I think it's not discussed enough and I think it's so important. And actually, one of my first episodes that I think we ever did on Hotel Talk, actually, yeah, it was really one of the first three. And then, yeah, we couldn't release it. As you said, we had to also tweak a lot of things on this podcast. And then I did it with the same gentleman who was our F&B manager, Sagi Suano. I can't remember which episode it is, but he came back after he left our company and did an episode talking about burnout because
Yeah.
I think it can happen when people are, around that 40-year-old mark, getting to it just after it. And also Nicolas Guidis, we spoke about it, who's a GM also on this podcast. You can get to that stage where this is a time intensive and emotion intensive industry. And it's amazing. It's I think the best industry in the world. But if you don't, constantly keep track of yourself, you can go into it too deep and not come out well. And it can be everything, just working too long hours, not exercising, not sleeping well enough, becoming work obsessed, drinking too much, eating too much, everything. So it is really important to have that balance and to talk about it so that people can stop themselves before they've fallen over.
Yeah, and what was super interesting for me is actually at the kind of at the real tipping point, I felt that I'd fallen out of love with the industry. I thought, I don't want to do this anymore. It's too time intensive. It's impacting my family life, my health. And I really thought, actually, I've fallen out of love with it. And then as I kind of went on this journey, I actually realized I hadn't fallen out of love with the industry. I'd probably fallen out of love with myself more than anything. And actually getting healthy and all of these things. But as in today, I have never been more excited to be in the hospitality industry today. And I feel that I am, so much better a leader now than I was. And I think people underestimate. If I could give one lesson to any young manager out there, and it's really tough when you get that first job going from whether it's a waiter to a supervisor or a receptionist to a reception manager, that first step is one of the hardest, because really before all you had to do was manage yourself and the guests in front of you. And I make that very simplified there. It's not that simple, but I think you get
I get the point,
message.
yeah.
And when you then start having to look after a team, whether it's 3 people, 5 people, 10 people, the amount that drains out of you is incredible. And that is a really important moment that people often go from looking after themselves to then spending more time looking after others. And actually what I've realized is if you can look after yourself, it's a very, very strong message for those people underneath you, because they will mimic your behaviors. So if you turn up to work on time all the time, if you're 10 minutes early, they will mimic that behavior because that's what they understand is acceptable. If you are, present and focused and at work, they will mimic that behavior. If you pull out a phone in a meeting and start texting people, they'll do the same thing. So it's that kind of self-leadership piece in all aspects of business, I think is really underestimated. And it's a really, really powerful tool for a young manager to kind of prioritize.
Absolutely. So what would be your advice then to not just younger people, to people our age, people older? What is the best way to look after yourself? If there was like 5 things to do a day, or I don't know, you can choose how many, but yeah, what would you say?
I suppose I do. I guess I have my pillars. For me, I kind of have 3 or 4 non-negotiables. Exercise. So every single day, it's tough with a young family and all of that sort of thing. So I kind of wake up at 5:30 every single day, whether I'm on holiday, whether I'm at work, and I get an hour's exercise done. And for me, that can be as easy as going for a run, going to the local pool. I've got a little bike at home that sits indoors, doing an hour on the bike. Like, that is a non-negotiable, because it's a bit of time for me to spin things through my head. Like, what did yesterday kind of hold? What's coming up today? It gives me the opportunity to kind of work out the bits of the puzzle. So exercise is super important, and it gives me endorphins. It gets me in a good mood. It does so much for me, that exercise. Sleep, I think I massively underestimated the impact of good sleep. And I think we probably all do. So I'm much more disciplined. I don't watch a lot of TV. So I kind of try and get to bed for 9:15, 9:30, sometimes 9:45. But really after 10, I'm starting to get a bit annoyed with myself that I'm not in bed. So a good 7.5 hours is pretty crucial for me. And then the last thing is the quality of the food, really. And I think, having been in hotels, and I used to eat a lot of processed food, a lot of alcohol, and actually when I changed that had a huge impact on being able to focus, being able to not being so tired, having more energy. All of those things made a huge difference to me. So I think those are probably the 3 places I'd start. And the way I tried to do that was just start them as habits, and now they just happen. So yeah.
Exactly. It's a whole lifestyle. It's not just a temporary fix. It's really giving yourself that time. Thank you for sharing
absolutely.
that. Yeah.
Pleasure.
So you read a lot. We know my sister reads a lot as well. I like reading. What's your favorite book, or a book that you'd recommend to our listeners to read? You can give several.
Okay. Favorite book, and it has to be because of the impact it's had on me. There's a American chap called Rich Roll.
Oh my goodness, he's also got an amazing podcast.
He does, yeah. And the book is called Finding Ultra. I think it's got like Finding Ultra, Rejecting Middle Age, or something like that.
I mean, his story is similar to yours, so yeah.
Yeah, and I think I read that book very early on in my kind of transformation journey, if you like, and it gave me so much hope. And I think the biggest
he's also
fear
vegan.
He's also vegan. Yeah, I haven't quite gone that far. I haven't quite gone that far, but
so don't worry, it's a slow journey, but I'm sure I'll welcome you in at some point.
I have increased my vegetable intake. I'll give you that much for free.
It's all about fiber.
Exactly. And I think that book just gave me a lot of hope. And I think it's a really, if you haven't read it, it's just about someone who, again, was just not in a great place, a lot worse place than I was. But I also think it's and if there is anyone out there struggling, I always think this as well, is that when you start opening up to people and you start talking to people, there is amazing people out there who want to help you. And whether it was my wife, whether it was my dad, whether it was people around me at work, when we start to share our problems, and as long as they're sincere and it's not another new problem every single day, the amount of goodwill and the amount of people that want to help you out there is crazy. And I remember when I started putting out that I was going to do keynote speaking officially, the goodwill, like literally had 10 people come back to me and say, well, we'll book you, we'll book you, we'll book you. And I think there is a lot of goodwill out there. And there's a lot of people who want to help each other. So, and that book that he wrote really kind of inspired me and made me realize that. And so I think that's my favorite book. It has to be said. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He's amazing. So actually on that note, that's perfect intro for my next question. Did you have a mentor? Did you have someone who has helped you along, not just your career path, but maybe your personal path as well? And how important do you think having a mentor is? Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've been really lucky. Lucky is maybe not the right word, but I've managed to attach myself to some really good people. In hospitality, I mentioned her name before. It has to be the lady Helly. She just won a big award actually in London last week at the Katie's General Manager of the Year, I believe, and
Wow.
thoroughly
Congrats to
deserved.
you, Helly, if you're listening.
Exactly. But from a hospitality perspective, the way she managed people was just inspiring to watch, and I learned so much from her. I learned again, how to kind of be consistent and turn up on a daily basis. I think from the health and fitness perspective, I kind of pulled in lots of different influences. But if I had one probably person, I started boxing quite early on in the journey, and it was this. I didn't really want to be seen. I mean, I was big. I was really big, and I didn't want to be seen.
It's crazy because I didn't know you obviously big, and I just can't even imagine you big. But then for other people, they can imagine
and
you slim,
there's
and
that
here you are.
embarrassment of the gym and all of that, and I was pretty ashamed of my body, and so I found this really dingy boxing place near to where I lived, and I turned up
You live in
there.
Salisbury, don't you?
I live in Salisbury,
Yeah.
but this was in Southampton, about half an hour away,
Okay.
because I was working quite a bit in Southampton at the time. And it was this really dingy kind of boxing gym that was practically free to go into. It was like, it wasn't like a big gym membership. It was like £5 a week, and you could turn up as many times as you wanted. And there was a boxing coach there called Wayne. And Wayne, like, he wasn't one of these kind of people who'd go, come on, you can do it. He was quite quiet. He was quite thing. But when he spoke, like, everyone in the gym listened. And I just started turning up. He basically opened the gym at 6 a.m. It wasn't a formal class that you turned up to. You just turned up, and then there was fighters there, and he was training some professionals. But he just got everyone stuck in together, and you would do circuits and all of this. And he, for me, was very no nonsense. Every day we had to write our weight up on, every week we had to write our weight up on the board. And he never sugarcoated anything. If I wasn't losing weight, he'd say, why aren't you losing weight? And I'd say, well, probably because my diet's not great. And he'd say, exactly. So stop all the excuses. And he didn't try and sugarcoat anything for me. So I think that made me realize that I can pay thousands of pounds to personal trainers. I can pay thousands of pounds to apps and, dietitians and all of that. But ultimately, there is only one person responsible for this journey, and only one person can make this happen. And that is me. And I think that's what he taught me. And that was quite a powerful message for me. I needed to hear it. Yeah.
I gave a talk in London that covered a lot of what you're saying, and that we all have a purpose and we don't realize it. And we just, we go about being ourselves, but how that can impact someone. So I don't think, like Wayne, he would have just been doing the best job he can do and being himself. And yet that's changed your life. And that's what's important. So I just love that. I love that. So this is not advertising podcast. That's not why we're here. We're here to really get to learn people and hear inspiring stories. But since we are here, and since my father has built up these absolutely stunning hotels in the New Forest, and you are now running them, let's tell everyone a little bit about the New Forest Hotel Collection and pub, of course, why the New Forest is so special and why someone should go and visit, because they are amazing.
Yeah, and actually it leads into kind of that health and well-being thing. And I think I count myself incredibly fortunate to live in this part of the world. The New Forest, just to start with, is I didn't know a lot about it early on in my kind of life. I lived in Brighton, London. And as I moved to Southampton and then Salisbury, I started spending more time in the forest. And I think it's, I've traveled quite a bit. I've been lucky enough to travel all over the world. But I don't think there are many places that are as epic as the New Forest. And I mentioned like sleep's good for you and food's good for you and things like that. But actually spending time in the New Forest is seriously good for you because it's so green, it's so lush. There's just animal, taking your children in there and animals just roaming free. You're driving to work and a herd of cows, stop you from driving too quickly. It has to be one of the most beautiful places on planet Earth, and I just love it. And being able to match that with a job I love in hospitality, and all of the hotels, we don't really need to do a sales pitch because the truth is they're all stunning in stunning locations, all in the forest, all and I guess my favorite bit of them all is that even if I've had a rough day, you walk out the front door of every single one of those hotels, and with 1 minute you can go and take a walk in the forest, and you can be alone within seconds. And the forest is beautiful on rainy days, and it's beautiful on sunny days, and everything in between. And most days we have all of those seasons in one. So, I count myself incredibly fortunate to work here. And to work in these properties. And your dad's done an incredible job of building up, such a diverse portfolio. We've got something for everyone. We've got something for families. We've got something for corporates that want to get away from London for a change up. Whether it's weddings, family celebrations, it's a really diverse set of hotels, which actually makes it really exciting for me because we're not just dealing with weddings, we're not just dealing with leisure, we're not. So it really is a great set of properties, and there's some amazing people, and they love working here because it's in the forest and because it's so beautiful, and they really cherish that. So yeah, we're really lucky. We're really lucky. There aren't many groups that would afford me that opportunity.
Yeah, there aren't many places in the world like it. They are stunning. So
Yeah.
well done, Dad. I know he's not a podcaster, but a podcast listener. If you do listen to this, we love you. Thank you for creating this. So, right. Fatherhood. I always try and ask dads about being dads because I think that, and I know from my husband who laughs and jokes, but with a slight serious undertone, mums, we get asked a lot, how do we balance it? How do you do it? You're a working mum. And yes, I think there is more that does fall on our shoulders as mothers. However, daddies are important, and dads work and they're away from their kids, and the kids need their father as well. So, tip on how to balance that to anyone listening here, and then hopefully your children, they're old enough, they're going to listen to this. Say something to your kids that they might want to hear.
Oh, amazing. So yeah, how do I balance it and give a tip? I think the first thing to say is I'm not an expert at that whatsoever. And I admire a lot of other people who probably are much better at getting that balance. I think for me is when I'm with them, I try and make it count. And the way and I've also realized through my own journey and the type of person that I am is when I make it count tends to be around being active. So going to play football, taking them for a walk, walking the dog, bringing them into the forest. I really try and focus my time around that.
Spend quality time.
Spend quality time is really important. And they do light up my day, I get incredibly excited, just to walk through the door and get a hug. And ultimately I feel with work, we talk about serving, and in hospitality we serve guests. I feel with my work in a weird kind of way, I'm serving them, as in I'm trying to be really successful at work because I want to give them the best opportunities. And I want to be able to help them later on in life when they want to maybe buy their first house or all of these things. Or I want to maybe be able to retire a little bit earlier than I should, so that I can be there to help with their grandchildren and with their children and so on. So I try not to talk. I try not to be nasty to myself about the fact that, yes, I do work hard, because actually I'm doing it for something for their future. But there is a balance. There is a balance to be struck, because you've got to live in the now as well. And I think probably that's an area of my life I'm trying to improve.
Still
my
working
wife,
on.
Yeah, my wife is absolutely incredible at that. She is so good at kind of really disconnecting work and like family time. And I'm incredibly fortunate, and she's quite good at trying to make me do that. I can be quite stubborn, but she's really good at that. So yeah, and if I've got anything to say to them, what would I say to them? I think we put a lot of pressure on children to be successful at, whether it's sports day, whether it's education. It's back to your thing about YouTube and Instagram and all of that. Parents can competitivize their children and that sort of thing. And I think I would just, I'm quite excited for my children, because I really try and push them to do things that they enjoy. Noah loves acting and he's brilliant at it. Now that's a really tough career path with maybe not a huge amount of success at the end of it, but he loves it, and I see he loves it, and he's in his element. So crack on. And with Rebecca, she's brilliant with animals, and she's a brilliant artist. And again, two slightly difficult career paths, but if you can find, a bit like I found my calling, I think if you can find that, you can be successful in anything. And I just encourage them to keep hunting for those dreams, and maybe don't let adult cynicism cut you down too quickly.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And just be you, be the best version of yourself. And that's enough. You're enough. Yeah. My dad always told me, actually, find something you love to do, and then find someone to pay you to do it, and then you'll always be happy. So I always tease him. I said, well, the joke's on you.
Yeah.
I'll come work for you then. Love it. Okay, so ending question. What's your favorite quote? I ask everyone this.
Yeah, so my favorite quote, certainly, I'll just describe why it's my favorite quote first of all. I think so often, like, we're kind of willing time away. We're willing our children to grow up, or we're saying to ourselves, or when they're a little bit older, we'll be able to do this. Or with work, we might be saying, oh, it's only 3 months till I get to go on holiday, or 2 weeks till, or once I get this week over, it'll be a bit better because my schedule's packed this week. And I really love the quote, Muhammad Ali, the boxer, don't count the days, make the days count. And I just think that's really powerful in the sense that too often, we're only going to be here for a certain amount of time. Too often we're thinking, oh, when I retire, I'll be able to relax a bit more, or when I think, and actually that day might never come in the first place because, life's unpredictable. So make every day count that you can. Have an impact on someone today. Have an impact today. Do something good for you today. And I think if you can try and think, I'm going to make an impact on one person's life today in a positive way, that's a really good saying to have.
I love that. I couldn't agree more. I'd go even a step further, and that's something I say in a lot of the talks that I give. Make every minute count. Like, a minute's a long time, and you can do a lot with that. So obviously it's impossible every single second, but you can do a lot. So
absolutely,
yeah, that's beautiful. So if you know Hotel Talk, then you know that there's always a bonus question once I've finished mine. So I've already pulled it out of the hat because you're not physically here to pull it out of my crystal ball yourself. And I did cheat a little bit and get one that's good for you. So the team puts all of these together. So I pulled out for you. What's the best restaurant you've ever experienced?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That is a toughie.
Obviously one of our waiters asked that. So
yeah, that's a really good question.
Quite a loaded.
What is the best? Oh, my word. Okay, you've really got me here because there's a few, but I'm gonna have to go with the one that hit me first. And when I think I was a receptionist at the Covent Garden Hotel at the time, and this group of French people came to stay. And as I mentioned earlier on the call, I speak fluent French. And one of them was called Joel Robuchon. And he was, sadly, I think he's passed away now, a very famous French chef. And he was opening a restaurant just around the corner called L'Atelier de Joel Robuchon. It was next to the Ivy.
I know it, yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard of it, of course.
And we were lucky enough to, so they stayed for like 6 weeks in the run up to this restaurant opening. And I got friendly with them and all of that. And they said, look, we're doing a friends and family evening. Would you like to come with a couple of your friends? And I took my dad and my brother. And it was just the most epic meal. The food, I hadn't experienced a lot of that type of food. I was still pretty young in hospitality. But the service was just another level. And I still think about that meal all the time. So that has to be. I don't think the restaurant. Maybe it's moved or it's. There's a few of them around the world now, isn't there? So, but yeah, that for me was just an incredible experience. And kind of having looked after them for many weeks, it was really, really good.
Amazing. Simon, thank you so much. I think you've shared so many interesting points and we've touched on so many different subjects in this, but ultimately I think people can definitely sense how exciting this industry is. And thank you for sharing all of this and all of your journey so far. And I can't wait to see what else is going to come your way. So we will definitely tag all of your social media, your LinkedIn and everything in the show notes.
Brilliant. Thank you. And I'm looking forward to hopefully coming and visiting you in due course.
We're looking forward to it. You're welcome at St. Raphael Resort anytime. Take care and thank you. Thanks everyone for listening. I really hope that you've enjoyed listening to Hotel Talk and this episode. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button because it helps us more than you may realize. And also, if you have enjoyed any episode more than maybe another, do share that with as many friends as possible, because whoever gets the most amount of downloads or likes after the first year, we will be donating 1,000 euros to a charity of their choice. So all your listens really help us. If you'd like to stay in touch, don't forget to hop along to St. Raphael Resort and Marina's website, join our Seahorse Club, and email the hotel anytime that you want to come and stay, quoting Hotel Talk to receive an exclusive offer just for you as our valued listener. So thanks once again, and here's to many more amazing episodes with you, our listener, in mind.